Hi everybody, welcome to video number 2 in my series on making text effects with CSS. Today we're going to make this cool text, frozen, icy, freezy, whatever, text effect just with CSS and HTML. I have my tea and this time I have a cookie which will be my reward at the end. So we are going to make this text here today. Let's put my obligatory jello in the text. And as usual, the tutorial is up on texteffects.dev as Ice Text Effect, and it'll go through how to do everything in written form if that's more your jam. What I'm going to do is go through one of the ways that you can make this text, but this article actually shows you a couple of ways to do it if you want to check that out separately. So let's get right into it. I've set a couple of things up to begin with, including the HTML. So I've just got the div there for wrapping so that we can position the text within the page for the purposes of the demo. You may not need this depending on what you're doing. Then we've also got the H1. Now we don't need any layers at the moment for this effect. I will add a layer later to do the animation if you want to include that, but as it's not necessary for the core styling, we'll add that in later and keep it separate. So jumping into our CSS, as I mentioned, I've got the div here for centering with Flexbox, and I have also included the font face for the font that I'm going to use. Now, the font I'm using is called Ice Kingdom. I don't have a download for you, but you can Google it. It's just called Ice Kingdom. If you want to use that font and have the same vibe, otherwise you can use whatever kind of font that you like, though I think with the main effect, something that's a bit blocky and quite bold and heavy would work the best. So if you've seen any of my text effects on CodePen, you will notice that I like to include nice backgrounds. So we are going to include a background. You can do this at the end, but I just think it looks nicer to have it there while we're working on the text. So we're going to put it in first. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is add a background image. Whoops. I have already uploaded the image to CodePen just to make it easier for myself, and you don't have to watch me go through that nightmare. So I'm just going to paste it in. Whoop. Done. And that's going to add the image into our background. And you can see it's really blue, like bright blue, which I don't love. Now I could edit this in Photoshop, but I'm going to use CSS instead. So we're going to add a linear gradient and we're going to say to bottom. And then I've predetermined what my hex values are going to be. So it is hash 0, hash 000-428, and then it's hash 000-4E92. What I'm going to do is just comment out the image for a sec. So we have our gradient, and then when we add our image, you'll notice that you can't see the image because the gradient is sitting over the top of it. So in order to make the background image show again, we're going to add a blend mode with the background blend mode property, and I'm going to use saturation as the value. And what that's going to do is take some of that bright blue out of the image and give me a better background. I think that looks great. So we will move on to the main event, which is the H1. So the first thing that we're going to do is add our font family in. I'm going to use Impact and sans serif as the fallback. And then we'll add font size, and we're going to use calc because I like using viewport widths for the demos. The reason that we use calc is because if you just use the viewport units on their own, when a user zooms in and out, you're going to lose that functionality for the text scaling. So by adding the calc, you retain that functionality, and it's better for accessibility. So we always want to make sure that we're doing the right thing there. So that gives us the text, and you can kind of see the vibe that we're going for with the font. The next thing that we're going to do is add that background image in. So let's just go ahead and do that. We'll go background image, URL. I'll just put my colon. Again, I have the image pre-uploaded to CodePen. Cool. So with these two images that I've included, they are from iStock. I've purchased them from there. I have the links in the description if you want to use those ones. They're also in the article. But if you don't want to do that, you can use any kind of Icy image. Just look for something that kind of fits what you're going for. I mean, you might come up with one that's better than what I've used, and it looks better in the end too. So this looks okay if you want it in the background, but what we want to do is clip it to the text. So we're going to use the WebKit background clip property with a value of text so that the image will be clipped to the text. And then so that we can actually see the background, we're going to use the WebKit text fill color property and transparent, set it to transparent. And that will get rid of the fill of the text, leaving us the background image behind. If you're worried about support for these, they are very well supported in the major browsers, so no need to worry about that. Cool. So once we've done that, you can kind of see that the main effect is complete. One thing that I don't love at the moment is how the image looks in the background. So I'm going to change the background size. Let's change it to contain first. Okay, yeah, that's much better. We'll leave it at that. But you can mess around with the background positioning, the background size to try and get something that you're after, like to find the best sort of position of it. But I think that works, so we'll do that. Now, another thing that I'd really like to do here is add an outline to the text, because I feel like you're kind of losing some of the definition from the jaggy bits in the font. So you can do this with text shadows, but what we're going to do instead is use the WebKit text stroke property. Let's just add 1 pixel and black for a sec. And so now you can see that it's sort of outlining the text. And it's sort of really showing those little indents and things in the text, which I feel make it look a bit more icy, like it's been chipped off an ice block. I don't like black though as a color for this. It needs to be more blue. So I've predetermined one again, so we don't spend 20 minutes picking colors. This one is a bit lighter than the background, and it sort of goes with the text, the background in the text. So you can play around with this. This is the one that I liked, and it sort of gives the definition without being too overpowering. So once we've done that, the last thing that we're going to do is add the drop shadow. I want to create like a glowing effect behind the text. Again, you can do this with text shadows, but if we did a text shadow, we would have to create another layer, because otherwise the text shadow will be sitting on top of our clipped background image. So instead, we can use the drop shadow function. Now, drop shadow is a function that you can use with the filter property. So we go drop shadow, filter drop shadow, and then drop shadow accepts 2 types of values, length and color. So the color is pretty obvious. We'll just set it to black. As far as the length goes, you can do 2 or 3 values. If you do 2 values, so let's just do that, you can see that it's creating a offset shadow behind the text, so you're basically offsetting by X and Y when you're creating this. If you did negative values, it would go in the opposite direction. So the third value, if you add a third unit to this, it will be the blur. So let's say we do 30 pixels. Woo, we got a big blur, which is great because this is what we want. It kind of looks and works similar to text shadows, but obviously the syntax is slightly different. But you can kind of think of it the same way when you're trying to decide how you want things to be positioned. So what we're going to do is not offset it. We're going to do 0, 0, 2 pixels. And again, I've predetermined the colors. So we're going to do a white shadow, but I want it to have some opacity. So that's why we're using the RGBA. Cool. So like text shadows, if you're familiar with them, you can actually add in multiple drop shadows that will stack on top of each other. So we're just going to add another 2 pixel one in, but this time we're going to use a slightly different color. And then we'll add another one. This is just sort of helping to soften the shadow and build up a bit of a glow. This one I think is going to be 0, 0, and we want to do a big blur now. So we're starting to create that glow. You kind of see it working. And another one, this will be our last shadow, 0, 0, 30 pixels. And the last color that I'm getting from my notepad that I have over here. There we go. Whoop, stray colon there. Let's get rid of that, clean that up a bit. So this is the effect. Ta-da! And that's it. That's all you have to do in order to create the text effect. It's not a lot of CSS when you keep in mind it's pretty much just this and the font face. And using that drop shadow really, really helps to simplify things. Now, in my original CodePen, I also added an animation. So we're going to go through and add that now. But in order to add the animation, we're going to need another layer. So we're going to jump back up into the HTML. And we're going to add a span with RE hidden of true, and we're going to make it say yellow. Now, you might be wondering why I'm using a span instead of something like data attributes with pseudo-elements and the content property in CSS. The reason that I'm using a span with the RE hidden is that unfortunately, if you're using the pseudo-elements with the content property in CSS, the screen readers are going to read that text out as well. So if it read out our HTML, it would be jello, jello, which is super annoying to have to hear that multiple times, especially as you start adding more layers. I have a post about this up on textlab.dev, which I'll link in the description so you can read more about it. There is a way to do it with the pseudo elements, but it's not supported cross-browser and cross the assistive technology at the moment, so it's not a really good solution. So until that is supported, we do extra elements. And we use RE hidden so that the screen readers won't read it out. So jumping back into our CSS, we are going to create that animation. So first things first, we're going to go position absolute, and we're going to offset it to the left. Yeah, and then what we are going to do, actually, do you know what I might do? I might add a class just so that it is a bit more animation. And then I'm going to fix my typo. Ta-da! Okay, cool. So now they're sitting on top of each other. One thing to note is that it is easier if the span is nested inside the main text element. When they're like siblings, it's a lot harder to get them to align. So if you can nest them, I would recommend that. Cool. So now that we have that, what we're going to do is create a background, because in the animation, what I want is like a sort of reflection or shine to swoosh across the text. So we'll create the shine with a linear gradient. Linear gradient, and we want it to be at an angle. So we'll do 45 degrees, and then we'll add in our colors. So we'll do RGBA, 255, 255, 255, 0 at 45%. What I'm going to do is just stack that there so that we can see. Then we'll go RGBA, 255, 255, 255, 0.8 maybe, 50%. Now you can start to see this gradient being made up now. Now we'll add RGBA again, just repeating all of this. 55%, I think. Yeah, okay, cool. This is looking really good. And again, 0, and this one will be 100%. Great. So you can see now that we have this line that goes straight through our text. So the next thing that we're going to do is we'll need to clip it to the text. But before I do that, I will add the animation keyframes and show you how the animation works, and then we'll clip it to the text at the end, just so that you can see what it's actually doing more easily. So we'll jump over and we'll use the keyframes at rule. I'm going to call it shine because that's kind of what it is. And we're going to create 3 keyframes, 0%, 10%, and 100%. We're going to have the actual movement be in from 0 to 10%. And then from 10 to 100, we're going to create an artificial pause so that it's not going whoosh, 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 whoosh all through the demo, because that's really annoying. So first up, in the 0%, we're going to set the background position. And we're going to make that minus 120%. Then at 10%, we're going to go, oops, jumped around, background position, 120%. And then at 100%, we're going to do the same thing at 120%. And I've made a typo. Let's fix that. So now we've got that. We can add our animation and we can go shine, and we'll make it 7 seconds and we'll have it run infinitely. Animation, background position. Cool. Why is that not moving? We're also going to add a background size of 200%. There we go. Okay, that's working. So we want the background size for 2 reasons. One is that we want it to end at the end of the text like this, and same for the other side, but also so that it can animate and move the position. So as you can see, it's sort of swooshing along the text. Now, if we add the WebKit background clip and specify text, and then WebKit text fill color of transparent, just to be sure, you can see that it's going to clip to the text and we're going to get that shine across the text. And that's it. That's how you create a CSS only frozen, freezy, icy text effect with just CSS and HTML. Now, one thing to note with the use of drop shadows is that when you add animations, you can notice some significant performance problems. So if you find that you're getting performance issues when using a drop shadow and an animation, what you can do instead of using the drop shadow is use text shadows instead. I'm not going to go through how to do that because it's quite similar to what we're already doing. But if you find yourself in that position, in the post at the end, I have a section on how to do this using text shadow instead of drop shadow for performance improvements. And it basically goes through creating the copies, positioning, and creating the text shadows so that you can have that option instead. But essentially, this is where we're at. That's how you create a frozen text effect in CSS. If you make anything cool, please let me know. I'd love to see it. And now I'm going to get back to drinking my tea and eating my cookie. Thanks so much. See you later.